Really long rant part 2. Uh, when to start this next myth, I am going to explain how I get looks when I walk into a room. When I walk into a room, when I start at a new location, I get these looks like I have done some sort of profane thing, some sort of uh, some sort of ungodly, profane thing just by wearing what I'm wearing and going to class. People look at me as if I'm walking around naked. Um, and I have had people ask me if I am a prostitute. Because apparently, to some people, being trans automatically qualifies you to be a prostitute. Now, I will say many trans people are so driven to become their gender identity that they would do almost anything to reach that, including prostitution. But that would be a last resort, and most people, most trans people are smart enough to not resort to the last resort. Um, this is this is very this is made much more complicated because any time that you see uh, a trans woman get killed, you will most likely hear the police report say that it was a prostitute that got killed. The police do this as well. They see it's a trans person, they tell the media that it was a prostitute. That's how idiotic people are. Just to hit the big point here, there is nothing to do with sex that being trans is about. When you are talking about transsexual, there's transvestite fetishism. That all falls under transgender, but not transsexual. Transsexual, despite the fact that it's the only one that really has sex in the name, has nothing to do with someone's sex drive. Has nothing to do with someone intending to do this for a sexual reason. It's all about identity. And in most cases, trans women, like, just like women want to be, don't want sex as much as men. Just like women don't want sex as much as men, trans women don't want sex as much as men. And trans men want sex more than women. I think would be an accurate way to say that. Now that's a generalization. And sometimes there are women that want lots and lots of sex, and there are men that don't want any kind of sex. There are various degrees, but generally speaking, that's the way things happen. You can provide counterexamples, individualized counterexamples, and it would make sense for you to do so because people are very different. But regardless, statistically speaking, that's the way things work. And this is only to tell you, it just doesn't make sense for trans women to be sexual objects. rights. Now, that's the reason people think that they are is because they just don't. Is because people are trying to think of it in terms of why would anyone do this, and they think of sex because people are idiots and think that sex is the answer to everything. But I can guarantee, but addressed fully well, I think, after 5 minutes in. Carrying on to another myth. This also kind of has to do with the sexualism thing, but in a different way. Anyone in the whole spectrum of LGBT will have to face this in some way or another when it comes to stupid people. If you are not heterosexual, God help you if you are. Such a boring life. Then you will probably be called a pedophile or be thought to be a pedophile simply because you are sexually deviant. And this is particularly annoying when it comes to trans people because we're not necessarily sexually deviant. We might not even want to have sex. Ever. It has, because, as mentioned, being transsexual has nothing to do with sex. Nothing to do with sexuality. Nothing. Absolutely zip. Nada. People don't become transsexual because of any sort of sexual attraction, any sort of reason to want to find a mate, get a mate, nothing to do with that. And yet, people still think that they are so lacking in sexual morality that they would become a pedophile. First off, that's kind of like saying you're so lacking. That's kind of like saying someone who shakes your hand with the left hand instead of the right hand is so lacking in public morality that they would run around naked in the Grand Square. Or if that someone who knocks on your door and finds that it's open, walks in uninvited just to say hi to you, is so, because they know that you're probably there, is so lacking in morality that they would probably break in and steal everything. Little things that shouldn't really be too offensive to anyone being taken to the point that people think it's so bad that it's going to be something evil and malicious, like pedophilia and rape. But most cases of pedophilia are heterosexual, and same thing with the rape there. Not all, but you know. And I think that I've covered most everything that I wanted to cover. I mean, if you have any questions about trans people, any at all, it could be the randomest, stupidest thing, and you could be afraid that you're going to sound offensive, and don't worry about it. Ask me. Please. I'm bored. No, really, I won't get offended if you're simply curious. I won't even get offended if you're being malicious. Just ask me anything that comes to your mind about trans people, and I'll try and give you an answer. If you come up with any myths that you feel come up, then I will address it. And oh, one final myth did come to mind. The term transsexual. People think transsexual, that means, oh, you've already had a sex change. Or MTF, you've already had the sex change. No. Usually if someone's already had the sex change, they start referring themselves as transsexual. They start referring themselves as female. Which I'm in between on whether I will or not. I'm proud to have been born male, physically, and mentally female. I am proud to have this kind of experience because it definitely gives you some insight on different sides of things, on both sides of things where people go awry. But what was I talking about? Oh, yes. Transsexual doesn't mean that the surgery is went all the way through. Transsexual doesn't even mean that you are going to get surgery, in that you have are going to get surgery in the future. It means that you would very much like to, and that's your plan, but you may never be able to meet it. And just because someone chooses not to have the surgery doesn't make them any less the gender they feel like they are than someone who chooses to have the surgery. As it's a matter of comfort within. If they can be comfortable with it, then good on them. I'm happy for them. Some people can't. One of the big things is that some people choose not to have the surgery because of sexual implications, especially FTMs. FTMs will lose so much of their sensitivity that most of them don't think it's worth it to go through a sex change. Might as well be a man. For an FTM, they feel like they might as well be a man with a vagina and still have the feeling of sexuality. And I can't really blame them for that. FTMs don't have as much loss in sexual feeling and ability, but they do lose some libido, which is usually comforting to most. See you later.